Okay, so let's set the scene. The year is 1827. A soldier serving the British East India Company, a man named James Lewis, decides he's had enough. He deserts his post, changes his name, and just takes off to follow his real passion, travel.
So, a couple of years later, he's wandering through the Punjab region, and he stumbles upon these ruins, an ancient, completely unknown city. He has no idea how old it is, who built it, but he just knows it's important. So he starts sketching and documenting everything he sees, totally unaware that he's just rediscovered a civilization that had been lost for thousands of years.
And that lost civilization is exactly what we're here to explore today. We're going to try and uncover the secrets of one of history's greatest mysteries, the Indus Valley.
So you have to wonder, how does an entire civilization just get lost? Well, it actually took almost 100 years after that lone traveler's discovery for the world to even begin to grasp what he'd found.
It all kicked off in 1829 with James Lewis and the city he found, Harappa. But nothing much happened until the 1920s, when a formal excavation finally began, led by archaeologist John Marshall. Then, in 1922, they found another site, this place covered in human remains, which they ended up calling Mohenjo-Daro, or the Mound of the Dead. And that's when it clicked. Archaeologists realized they weren't just looking at one lost city, but a whole forgotten civilization.
And what they uncovered, well, it wasn't some primitive society. Not at all. It was something else entirely. They found cities that were so advanced, so perfectly planned, it was almost unbelievable. We're talking about a world that was, in a lot of ways, more modern than cities built thousands of years later.
And listen to this. This wasn't some tiny settlement. At its peak, maybe 4,500 years ago, this civilization was home to an estimated 5 million people. To put that into perspective, that's one of the largest populations in the entire ancient world. It was one of the very first great urban societies on Earth. What they found was just astonishingly organized. I mean, we're talking about cities with multi-story houses built from standardized baked bricks. And I mean the exact same size bricks found across hundreds of miles. And get this, almost every single home had its own private bathroom and toilet. That's a luxury most of the world wouldn't see for thousands of years. They had complex citywide sewer systems, public wells, even designated dustbins for their trash. That level of coordination points to a really sophisticated society, maybe even a centralized government we're only just starting to understand. But for all we've learned from their incredible cities, the people themselves are totally silent. And that brings us to our first huge mystery. We have over 4,000 artifacts with their writing on them, but we have absolutely no idea what any of it says. Now, we have figured out a few things. We're pretty sure it was written from right to left, because the symbols on the left side of an inscription often look all squished, like a student running out of room at the end of a line. We've identified over 400 unique symbols. That tells us it's probably a logosyllabic script, which is just a fancy way of saying some symbols are whole words and others are sounds, kind of like a mix between hieroglyphs and our alphabet. And these inscriptions are tiny, found on these small seals that often have an animal on them, and the most common one is this really fascinating unicorn-like creature.
Okay, so with all those clues, why can't we just crack the code? I mean, people have been trying for over 100 years, and every single attempt has failed. And the reason why really just comes down to one critical missing piece of the puzzle.
Let's compare it to an ancient script we can read: Egyptian hieroglyphs. The whole key to unlocking the hieroglyphs was finding a special artifact that had the same text written in multiple languages. For the Indus script, well, no such thing has ever been found. We're basically trying to read a language with no dictionary and zero translation guide. That key for Egypt, of course, was the Rosetta Stone. It had the same message written in hieroglyphs, which was a total mystery, but also in ancient Greek, which scholars already knew how to read. It was like an ancient Google Translate. It let them match the unknown symbols to known words, and boom, eventually the whole language was deciphered. The Indus Valley is still waiting for its Rosetta Stone. And the silent script isn't even the only mystery. There's an even bigger one. What on earth happened to the 5 million people? How does an advanced civilization of that size just disappear?
When you look at the archaeological record, you see this sudden, rapid collapse. Around 1900 BC, everything just starts to fall apart. That amazing city planning, it stops. The complex drainage systems fall into disrepair. The Great Bath at Mohenjo-Daro is literally filled with garbage. By 1800 BC, most of the great cities are empty, and by 1300 BC, they're gone from the record completely. So what could have caused a failure that catastrophic? Well, right now there are three leading theories. First, climate change. It's possible a vital river they depended on either dried up or changed its course because of tectonic shifts, forcing everyone to leave their cities. Second, maybe it was a self-inflicted ecological disaster. They might have just cut down too many forests for fuel to bake all those bricks, leading to deforestation that totally wrecked their environment. And third, a fatal epidemic. Something like cholera or malaria could have just ripped through the dense city populations and wiped them out.
But here's the thing, while their cities crumbled and their script is still a mystery, the story doesn't really end in ruin. In fact, if you look closely, the Indus Valley Civilization never truly disappeared. Its echoes are still alive, all around us today.
Incredibly, so many of their cultural and religious practices seem to have survived through the millennia. The worship of a mother goddess, which we see in all these female figurines they found, is a tradition that continues in the subcontinent. The spiritual importance of water, symbolized by that great bath, is still a central part of many faiths. The worship of nature, of trees and animals, and the use of idols, all these practices can be traced back thousands of years to these silent ancestors. So maybe we shouldn't think of them as a lost civilization at all. I mean, their cities vanished, sure, but their ideas, their beliefs, their traditions, they flowed onward, becoming a part of the cultures that came after. So many of their traditions are still alive in millions of people today. It just goes to show you how much of our own history is still buried, just waiting right under our feet. And it leaves you wondering, if a civilization of 5 million people can be forgotten for millennia, what other secrets from our past are still out there, just waiting to be found?